So I've been given the impossible task of discussing foreign intelligence threats or counterintelligence concerns in a completely unclassified manner. I am up for this challenge, though, so this is going to be interesting. It'll be fun. I will say before I go into 3 examples that I want to highlight, 2 big takeaways if you remember nothing else. One of the biggest issues that I generally tend to see within the DoD, the government as a whole, academia, across all of industry, is there's a propensity to focus on the trees while ignoring the larger forest. I see this issue a lot, especially, I mean, as engineers, we like to focus on the realm of what's possible, but we often ignore the considerations that foreign intelligence officers place when conducting an intelligence operation. And this kind of goes into my other takeaway. So I'm not going to go over all the considerations that a foreign intelligence officer would take when considering an offensive supply chain operation, but 2 of the ones worth highlighting are the amount of resources it takes. If I am conducting an offensive supply chain operation, one of the biggest considerations that I would have is the number of resources that are required to do this. If I could do this completely on my own, that's great. If I could use 1 or 2 individuals, even better. If I start needing to use dozens of individuals to conduct something, that's not looking really too good for me, not too favorable. And the other big thing is plausible deniability, another thing that nobody ever talks about. If something is identified and someone catches something, how easily is it going to be able to determine where this was done, who did this, and is this going to blow up in my face? So I'm using 3 examples that kind of fit what we're talking about here. This is almost the psych out slide because counterfeits, not an intelligence issue. A lot of people consider them to be an intelligence issue. It is a supply chain issue, but this is a fraud issue. It's a safety issue, but this is generally handled in the fraud realm. I will say that if I am conducting an intelligence operation, this is a very intriguing market, though. And I say this because counterfeits, no matter where you're at, so we'll kind of back up. Looking at where most of the e-waste goes to, routed through Shantou, from Shantou moved over generally to Shenzhen and neighboring areas before being sent back out. That is illegal in China. So we have this illegal operation being done in China. If I am the Chinese government and I know that this is operating in my backyard, I like working with criminals because if they don't do what I want them to do, they're going to jail. So these are the types of things that I look at. Can I use this market to do something that is actually an intelligence issue? So this is where we kind of go into mimics and clones. I hate saying mimics in front of engineers because everyone thinks I'm talking about MMICs. This is mimicking the functionality of a device, but generally the things that I care about are clones, where somebody has illicitly acquired design files, GDS2 files, and are manufacturing a device outside of the OEM's authorized supply chain inside their own supply chain. So we talk a lot about, hey, how can I get myself into Samsung's foundry or Intel's foundry or Global Foundries foundry to conduct my supply chain operation? I say, I don't even care. If I could manufacture someone else's devices within my own ecosystem within China, running it through SMIC rather than like a TSMC or UMC or a Samsung or Global Foundries, why am I going to go and bother all these steps whenever I could, 1, illicitly produce these clones, make some modifications within the design if I have some understanding of the design file, and then rely on this counterfeit market to reintroduce these parts back to the DoD. So these are some of the things that I wish that we were talking more about in this area that we're not necessarily talking about. 2 other things that I'll briefly talk about before moving on as well. Third-party IP, we've been doing a really good job of talking about that in recent years, which I'm very thankful for. Not many resources are needed to kind of come up with a third-party IP shop and then kind of market that your products and devices towards the DoD crowd, and then it becomes lack of traceability and where it came from, as well as not being able to actually get into the IP and be able to identify this. So this is another attractive target. I don't need to recruit anyone. I could just create some type of front company and distribute this market to the DoD. The other one that I'll quickly talk about is EDA tools. I'll break EDA tools into like FPGA programming tools, as well as the EDA tools of Synopsys, Cadence, Siemens, that type of area. On the one side of the house, EDA tools are very, very expensive. It's it's an open secret that a lot of people like to pirate software, or in a lot of cases for FPGA programming tools, they're working on obsolete devices where the new programming tools aren't working with the older ones. So they go to websites to illicitly acquire this that may or may not have malicious code in it to set up an attack later on down the line. So I am at time right there, but those are some of the 3 topics. If you want to hear more about that, I could be around to talk your ear off. I'll move us on to the next folks. Thanks.